Hi students, welcome to this week's video, week 5. I hope you're all having a good week so far. So in this video, I'm just going to go through a few slides and focus on a few highlights as I usually do. So first up, this week you've been reading the Checklist Manifesto. You've read chapters 1 through 6. Now I hope that you found this book really interesting and just a page turner basically. So all I want to say about it at this point, before we finish the whole thing, is read it. Now, in designing this class for the first time, and you guys are experiencing what that's like, I didn't incorporate any quizzes over the readings, and I may do that in a future semester. So if you're watching this in a future semester, you might have quizzes on the reading materials. Currently, students are just receiving my synthesis in these videos each week, and I'm hoping that you compile all of the knowledge that I'm helping you all to cement in your brains, and you're reporting it back to me in some sort of synthesized way via the reading responses that we have every few weeks. So read, enjoy it, pursue the knowledge in a way that's hopefully just all contributing to the task of enlightening you about the benefits of usability testing and conscientious design of information. And so when you're reading this book, and as I said, you should be about halfway through, I want you to pay attention not only to the interesting anecdotes that span disciplines, but think about how these anecdotes are united around a central theme. So I just mentioned a few themes just a few seconds ago, but think about what is Gawande's overarching point? What is he hoping improves in our early 20th century context regarding some of the guidance he's offering in this book? So what I'm going to focus on a little bit more in this video is Barnum's Chapter 9. So when writing up the results of a usability study, Barnum suggests that you begin by remembering, and always remembering, 3 key concepts from Aristotle, which are audience, purpose, and context of use. Now, if you've taken other technical communication classes before, whether that was English 2210, which is our foundation technical writing class, or any other classes that figure as parts of our certificate or minor, you've probably been beaten over the head with the concepts of audience, purpose, and context of use. So the main job of a communicator is to persuade their audience. Either you're trying to persuade them to act, or you're trying to persuade them to think a certain way, or you're trying to inform them, to persuade them to absorb informative information that you are presenting them with. So every document or oration that you create has a purpose. And that purpose is often, as I said, to inform or persuade or to caution, whatever that might be. So you need to think very carefully about what the audience is for your usability testing report, what the purpose of your report is, and finally the context of use. Where is someone going to read this report or view the report? How much time do they have? What position do they fill in the company or the organization that you're working within? So what kind of information do they need? But the context of use has to do, and I tell my beginning technical writing students this, it has to do with where someone is using the information. Sometimes that might be who they're using it with. Are they alone? Are they with a group? Are they using an instruction set on a phone? Are they using a booklet that they are using on the side of the road to try to solve a roadside emergency? Or are they using a checklist in a workplace context, like about how to effectively wash your hands? Is it hanging on the wall of a bathroom? Those are all things that you need to consider when you're thinking about context of use. So right now you are working on an assignment that asks you to learn about various approaches to writing usability reports. So Barnum's chapter comes at just the right time then. What does she mean by thinking hard about the medium for your message? That's a very famous phrase. And I want you to think about when you're learning to design your own usability testing report template, what is the medium, which is by what manner is it presented to the people who are going to be using it? So of course, video is a medium. An app on a phone is presented in a certain medium, which is slightly different than a desktop computer medium. A URAL, an oral medium, is another way of presenting information. A hands-on demonstration is another medium for information. So there are lots of different mediums for messages. Like the information in a book can be presented in the book itself, in a film, in a podcast, in a book on tape, although they're not really books on tape anymore, but there are many different mediums for messages. So I want you to think about how that concept, the relationship between the medium and the message, pertains to how you're designing your information visually in the modality that you're using in your usability testing report template that you're designing. Okay, so a few questions that I want to ask you about Chapter 9. So what are some of the key differences between informal and formal reports? So in the chapter, she gives you an example of a rather brief, somewhat more informal report, and then she gives you a really carefully teased out exegesis on a formal report. So what are all of the components of that? As I ask in this next question, what are some of the elements of standard practice for writing reports, such as this? So a usability testing report is one kind of report, but there's all kinds of reports that take place in a workplace setting, like a recommendations report or a findings report. Many of you have written lab reports. So are there some standard features to some of these different kinds of report types? And in industry and workplaces, are there more standard functional components within a genre? My next question is it useful to foreground positive findings from a usability test? There's some examples of that in the chapter. In my field, technical communication, which is within writing studies, we often say that when you are grading a student's work, you want to use the sandwich approach, which is a positive remark, a remark about an area for improvement, which might be called a criticism, followed up with a positive remark. So it creates a sandwich of feedback. I must say I don't always do that because sometimes I don't have time, but it's a really good logic, and I want you to think about how that would pertain to presenting the results of a usability test in a usability testing report. Now my next question is, how do you incorporate graphics and what kind to reveal specific information derived from a usability test? There's all kinds of examples of graphics in this chapter. In what case would an annotated screenshot or a table help make your case? So please think about that. You're going to want to have this top of mind when you're creating your template, because you're going to want to have a space for different kinds of graphics in that template, as the examples in the assignment reveal. So you might also have to report your findings via an oral presentation. Sometimes, as Barnum discusses, people think that oral presentations are a fate worse than death. I don't know if you feel that way, but there are certain sort of tips and tricks. There's all kinds of TED Talks and YouTube videos about effective strategies for oral presentation. And so one oral presentation instance would be presenting to a team in your organization the findings from the usability test. So this chapter, more than some others, makes it very obvious why strong technical communication skills are vital in the user experience and user-centered design realm. So I hope that you understand why it's important to leverage your effective and clear communication skills into the realm of usability research, testing design, and other kinds of subfields that relate to these larger fields. So with that, I want to encourage you to keep reading the Checklist Manifesto. Next week, you will also begin reading a new book, which is Rubin's Handbook of Usability Testing. So I hope you all have a great weekend.